little different way to look at it. So what I did is I actually printed off exactly what your homework's going to look like today, just so you know. There will be a part you need your notebooks, but not the first part. Okay. If we look at this problem right here. Okay. If we look at this problem, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a graph. Now, as you guys look right there, that is an example of a great-looking parabola. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you a series of 4 questions. Now, these questions are going to be mixed up every time, but it's going to be the same 4 questions no matter where they're at. So the first question here is, does the parabola open upward or downward? Is this upward or downward? Downward. Okay. The vertex. So if you guys look at the vertex is right there, right? It's at the very top of the parabola. That right there is actually 1 and 9. Okay, so your vertex is the very top or the very bottom of the parabola. Now the axis of symmetry, what would this be? So remember, it's a vertical line. It's 1, but remember, I told you something very key about the axis of symmetry. It is 1. But how did I tell you you have to write the axis of symmetry? You have to write the axis of symmetry x equals. You have to write it x equals. If you do not write x equals, it'll mark it wrong. The axis of symmetry is always written x equals. And then it asks for your x and y intercepts. So your x-intercepts here would be 4 and negative 2. And your y-intercept would be 8.
Does it matter if you put 4 negative 2 or we put negative 2?
It doesn't matter. Okay? It's all the way up here where it crosses. That's the y-intercept. Okay, look at this one. We'll look at a couple of these, then we'll get to the part. I'm going to call on people. Lane, upward or downward? Okay. Who can tell me what the vertex is, if you guys can kind of see that? 3 and negative 1. Good. Okay. And then it says, what about the axis of symmetry? What would be the equation of the axis of symmetry? X equals 3. The cool thing about the axis of symmetry, if people have picked up on this already, the axis of symmetry is the x-coordinate of the vertex. Okay? So the axis of symmetry is the x-coordinate. So your x-intercepts would be 2 and 4, and your y-intercept would be 8 right there where it crosses. So everybody can see right here it crosses the x-axis at 2 and 4, and the y-intercept at 8. Okay. Actually, I don't want that one. Yeah. Okay. So once again, it's going to open upward. I'm going to do the vertex. The vertex is 1 and negative 9, which means the equation of the axis of symmetry would be x equals 1. Remember, you have to add x equals or to mark it wrong. The x-intercepts are 4 and negative 2, and the y-intercept would be negative 8. Any questions on how to describe a graph? Where it crosses the x-intercepts. And then it crosses the y right there. Okay. Okay, take out your journals. Everyone out. Hey, show your Chromebooks. Show your Chromebooks. Take out your journals. Hustle. Yep. Just graphing quadratics. We're just building on it. Okay, so anytime we're asked to graph the quadratic, we know how to graph it. We've been doing it now for 3 days. But the last thing we have to know about graphing it is it's going to then ask us what is the domain and the range. Okay, So a couple things you have to know, and I'm gonna write it down right over here. The domain equals the x-axis. The range equals the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to start off talking about the domain. The really cool thing about parabolas is the domain is always the same. So, the domain is always the same. No matter what kind of parabola it is or what the parabola looks like, the domain is always the same. The domain is all real numbers. Now, it's written like this, all real numbers, but there's a symbol for it. Does anyone know the symbol for domain, for all real numbers? What? No, here. It's an R with a line through it. That's how you write all real numbers. So everyone practice writing this just a couple times. The way I do it is I write 2 lines and then draw an R off the first line. That's the symbol for all real numbers. Okay, the range. If the graph looks like this, so if the graph looks like this, or opens up, the range is y is greater than or equal to. If the graph opens down, the range is y is less than or equal to. And then we're going to talk about what number goes right there. Yeah, so the number that goes right here is going to be the y coordinate of vertex. So y coordinate of vertex. So it just, so whatever number, so it depends on what kind of shape the graph is, whether or not it opens up or down. If it opens up, its y is greater than or equal to the y coordinate of the vertex. If it opens down, its y is less than or equal to the y coordinate of the vertex. Now in this example right here, it tells you the vertex up here, and it will tell you the vertex on your homework today. So your vertex is 3 and -1. So first off, does this graph open up or down? Up. So because it opens up, its y is greater than or equal to, what's the y coordinate of our vertex? We're looking at this number right there. And there's your range. Okay, let's look at another. Look at this one. Trick question. Daniel, what is the domain? The domain is always the same. So if the domain above was all real numbers, what would be the domain of this one? All real numbers. Those are called these. Fake numbers are this. Okay.
Is that actually even serious?
Yeah. We learned it this year. They're not called. That's like they're actually called imaginary numbers or complex numbers. Okay. So the range. It opens down, right? Because it opens down, it's going to be less than. What's the y coordinate of the vertex? -2. Pretty easy, right? Okay, let's do one more. You guys do this one on your own for, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Shouldn't take you much more than 30 seconds. In fact, you can probably do it in your head. Got an email, I got a text message from Sid's mom just barely about my son. Spelling test this Friday. Gotta practice his words. Ugh, piece of crap, kid. Alright, here we go. The domain is all real numbers. The range, because it opens up, it's y is greater than or equal to -4. Okay, that's it today. You guys, your assignments on Alex, you're going to be looking at graphs, you're going to be graphing a couple more, and then you're going to be stating the domain and the range.